Welcome everybody to the Mod Golf Podcast video edition on our YouTube channel. My name is Colin Weston. I am the host of the Mod Golf Podcast. And if you don't know, on the Mod Golf Podcast, I speak with the influencers, entrepreneurs, innovators, and disruptors who are shaping the future of golf. And today I have a gentleman, I think he actually fits in all 3 or 4 of those buckets here as far as what he brings to the golf industry. And that is Terry Koehler, who is the head of director of innovation and the chairman of Edison Golf Company. And we're going to talk today about Edison forged wedges. And just to let you know that Terry and I just got off of a really engaging audio conversation that we'll have on the podcast episode. We'll have a link of that below here on our YouTube channel. But I wanted Terry to jump on here quickly just to talk about some other things that we didn't talk about on the show. But before we do that, Terry, maybe you can do a quick intro for people watching here today about yourself and a quick backstory of your entrepreneurial journey that's brought you to the formation of Edison Golf Company.
Well, I don't remember life before golf, Colin, and I was very blessed after bouncing around a few years out of college, and I landed in the ad agency business, and the first account I ever went to secure was Ray Cook Putter Company in San Antonio at the time, which in 1980 had a very good track record for a lot of really great players, from Billy Casper to just Bruce Crampton, Nancy Lopez, a lot of great users. And so from there, I met a lot of small entrepreneurial golf companies like Ray Cook, and felt like maybe I could do this someday. I started designing putters in the mid 80s and designed my first wedge concept in 1990 and got a patent on a sole design in 94. And in the mid 90s, created my first golf company called Reed Lockhart, and that kind of evolved. One company just kind of flowed into the other. I became a wedge specialist with a company called Eidolon and then Score. Had a diversion where I brought the Ben Hogan company back to golf. And then when I retired from that, I thought I'd just fish for a while. And these ideas of wedges kept bouncing around in my head. And I said, I have to do that. So I went back to the drawing board and created the wedges that became the Edison forged wedges that we've just launched this year.
Nice. Now we didn't include this in the audio podcast. Of course, we wanted to have some extra content here. So we held off on this, and you're a really great storyteller. So about the sole design, I believe there's a connection to St. Andrews with that. Would you tell us your sole design story with Edison forged wedges?
Sure. I really had not done much in wedges. I'd thought about them some, but I had a mainstream brand wedge in my bag. My brother and I went to a wonderful golf trip in Scotland in 1990. And when we got over there, the real tight turf and was just killing me. I mean, my sand wedge was fine out of the bunkers, but the tight turf over there was just really giving me the blues. And we were taking a little tour of Ochterlony's golf shop off the 18th green there at St. Andrews, and I saw a grinding wheel, and this idea just hit me, and I asked if I could use it. So I ran back to the hotel and got my wedge, came back over and just ground on this wedge and made it look really awful. But what I did is I put a real steep bounce on the front part of the sole, and I shallowed out the bounce on the main part of the sole so I could handle that tight turf without digging. And then I packed a bunch of lead tape in the back of it because I had ground so much off of it. I ground the leading edge all the way up to the first groove. It was ugly, but the rest of that trip in Scotland at Turnberry and Troon and St. Andrews, it just worked beautifully. So I came back and bought a bunch of wedges out of a used club barrel, started grinding and welding and grinding and welding, and came up with this sole design of putting a real steep bounce on the front of the sole, but a real shallow bounce on the main part of the sole. And it's been sold as the dual bounce sole, the V sole. I just call it the Koehler sole now because those are trademarks to other companies. But I patented this, and I filed a patent in 91 and finally was awarded the patent in 94. Was pretty flattered. There was an article a while back that Tiger Woods is supposedly grinding his own wedges now, and they had a picture of a wedge, and it's like, holy cow, it looks just like the ones I patented way back then. So that's pretty flattering.
Nice. Well, you talked about the patent you have. So you have IP. So you got some secret sauce and kind of barrier to entry to protect you here. But one of the interesting things we were talking about on the audio podcast earlier is this comparison of Big Bertha back in the day of being more forgiving, having that the bigger volume of the club head of just opening up golf for the recreational player to make it more fun and more enjoyable, and for their improvement and performance to go up for the masses rather than the tour players. So is it fair to say, I know this isn't not your tagline, but in a way for what you do for wedges, that you are the big Bertha of wedges, the way you've approached that? Is that fair to say?
Callaway probably wouldn't want me to say that.
I'm sure they wouldn't.
But you know what we've done is not tweak wedge designs, which I've done in my past. I've tweaked wedge designs, and with Score in the early 2010-11 period, I took a really radical departure and created a progressive weighting design, which had not been done before. It was later copied by one of the big brands, inspired, I guess. But this time I said, you know, I've got a clean palette. I got the face of a golf club. I know what I want it to look like. But I'm going to take the back of the golf club and I'm going to make it look like nobody's ever made a wedge look before, because there are things I want this golf club to do. And the main thing I was out to try to do was to equalize what we call the smash factor. If I can use this wedge, when you hit a ball low in the face, you have a conversion of energy that's pretty high. You know, that sizzler that you hit low in the face and it goes long and it has a lot of spin on it. And then you have your center face hit. But then when you hit it out on the toe, or particularly when you hit it up high in the face, that's those shots that just don't go anywhere. They don't spin right. So I set out a goal. I said, how can I equalize as much as possible? And every club has a single sweet spot that's an optimum point of impact. But how can I equalize that transfer of energy as broadly across the club as possible? Which is the goal of a big driver, the goal of a hybrid, the goal of a cavity back iron, the goal of a big mallet putter, is to let you get away with shots that aren't quite so good. But nobody's ever said, I want to do that in a wedge. I want you to get away with the shot that's not quite so good. So we created this golf club head that's got a tremendous amount of mass in the upper half of the golf club compared to other wedges. And what that does is it equalizes what's called the smash factor, which is the factor that measures the transfer of energy. So on conventional wedges, that smash factor from down here to up here can range 20 or 25% different. We reduce that to 8% different from your best shot to your worst shot. So that means your worst shot's going to go 25 or 30 feet further than it would have with the wedge that's in your bag right now.
Nice.
And that's money. It's, you know, a 20-foot uphill birdie putt instead of plugged under the lip of the bunker. And that's what I was trying to do, and we did it.
You're talking about my golf round yesterday with the plug it in the bunker, not the not perfectly hit shot with a wedge that ended up 20 feet from that. So I'm very curious to hear, as far as also market potential with what you have. It's been said that that bringing more women into golf is the multi-billion-dollar golf industry opportunity. So we haven't talked about this earlier, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. With your wedges, are you appealing or fitting for women also? Do you find women are reaching out to you that are recreational players that are interested in getting some of your wedges in their hands, or is that something you're looking to market towards? Is that massive untapped female golf market?
Well, you know, Colin, there was a very close industry friend of mine that had the best saying I think I've ever heard about golf clubs, and he says the golf ball don't know. The golf ball doesn't know if you're a woman. The golf ball doesn't know if you're a senior. The golf ball doesn't know anything about what were the set of dynamics at the moment of impact. And I think that it's really, I think it's condescending to treat women differently than seniors differently. And I mean, what are your skill sets? And, you know, I mean, take the LPGA players. These are brilliant players, and they're strong. They're powerful. They hit it better than most of your recreational male golfers. They hit it longer. They hit it straighter. So you're going to say they need women's golf clubs? Heck no, they're athletes. They are seasoned athletes, and they're tuned athletes. And that golf ball doesn't know. But what that golf ball does know is what are the dynamics of this golf club at the point of impact. Doesn't know who's holding it. Doesn't know who's swinging it. All it knows is what were the impact dynamics. So the women's market, the men's market, the senior market, here to me is the market, Colin. There's 15 million golfers carrying 40 million wedges. And I know for a fact, these are better than those 40 million that are in their bags because they were designed to be better. And these people are playing tour design wedges that are very finicky and very volatile about where you make impact on the face. And I wanted to bring to the wedge category the same kind of forgiveness we're demanding out of our drivers, our fairways, our hybrids, our cavity back irons, our big mallet putters. we're demanding that we get away with shots that are okay, but they're not great. We're demanding we get away with those. And I said, why can't I demand that out of a wedge as well? And that's what has driven me for the last 20 years of my design world, but it was very focused on driving the design of these Edison wedges.
Love it. Love it. Well, we can keep going here, but of course, we want people that are watching here to, of course, listen to the full podcast episode that we just completed and is up, and we'll include the link on that below. But before we finish up here, Terry, why don't you tell our viewers here where they can learn more about Edison Wedges?
Well, we go to edisonwedges.com. It's also edisongolf.com, takes you to the same place. We tell you what we've done, why we did it, and how we did it. And we offer you the opportunity to put these in your bag at no risk with your lofts, your shaft, your length, your grip, and put them on your own golf course, because we know what we have. It's the only way we can compete with the major companies is to outperform them. And that's how Callaway got into business with Big Bertha, by outperforming the status quo at the time. And every innovation in our industry, Karsten Solheim with that answer putter, and the TaylorMade guys with their metalwood. I mean, every innovation in our industry has, with very few exceptions, has come from upstart companies that had the vision and the nothing to lose attitude of, I'm going to challenge conventional wisdom. And we're all better off for that. We're all better off for these innovators. And, it happens not just in golf, but we're talking about golf, so we'll limit it to that.
Yeah, we do. So before we go here, Terry, since you have over 4 decades in the golf industry as an innovator in many areas of the game, especially on the product and the equipment side, I get so many emails from listeners and viewers that are aspiring entrepreneurs in the golf industry, and whether it's they're looking at a product, a service, or an experience, or some conversation or combination of that. Can you provide perhaps a couple of tips or cautionary tales, or a little bit of advice of what they should do or not do, or characteristics that they should embrace and really embody in order to have the best chance of entrepreneurial success?
Well, I think, yeah, I can do that, and I'll keep it brief. First thing, make sure you're solving a problem that really exists. You may have an idea for a problem that people don't perceive the problem. If everybody thought they were an outstanding wedge player, it'd be hard to sell wedges. So, make sure you've got an idea that's going to solve a problem that really is a problem, not just because 3 of your golf buddies have that problem, but make sure you're solving a real problem. Make sure then you have the character traits you're going to have tenacity. You're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. You've got to be patient. You've got to plod away. You've got to go to work at it every day. And you've got to be relentless, and I would say what drives that is you better be passionate about what it is you believe you've got in that idea. They say that, Thomas Edison, who was our namesake of our company, they said that, when he failed the light bulb, they said, well, I guess you failed. And he said, I just found one more way not to invent a light bulb. And, that tenacity, which is why we chose his name for our company's name, is he exhibited this relentless tenacity to achieve the objectives he was after. And that was driven by a passion to solve problems. And when you're in that 70-hour work week and you're on your last nickel and you're wondering how you're going to get over the hump, you're going to fall back on your passion. And, passion wins in the long haul most of the time.
It does. Thank you for sharing those the nuggets of wisdom there. Some great advice, not just for entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in the golf space, but that's a kind of an overarching universal truth that you just provided there for all entrepreneurs, and no matter what sector or industry or space that you're in. So, hey, with that, why don't we leave it right there? So Terry Koehler, Chairman, Director of Innovation at Edison Golf Company. Terry, thanks so much for this. And as I mentioned, down below, we'll also have the link for the podcast episode where we have our expanded conversation where Terry gets in even deeper about his entrepreneurial journey and the story of Edison Golf Company. So everybody, thanks for joining us for the Mod Golf Podcast YouTube edition. And Terry, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Colin. It's always a pleasure.